I'm happy to welcome on stage Mr. Chad Evans, Executive Vice President at the Council on Competitiveness, who will be moderating the next panel, Frontier of Technology and Innovation. Joining Mr. Evans will be Mr. Jim Phillips, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Nanomech, Dr. Keoki Jackson, Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at Lockheed Martin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. I will have to reiterate, I think, many thanks. Thank you to our partners at SAGIA. Thank you for your excellencies. And for all of our GFCC members and others who are with us today, we very much appreciate your participation and engagement in our 6th GFCC annual meeting. And as my president and CEO, Deborah Wentz-Smith, mentioned this morning in her opening comments, we really are truly living and working in an age of turbulence, transition, and transformation. This is a world in which Moore's Law has set the pace for performance improvement as well as cost reduction in semiconductors and electronics for the past 50 to 60 years. And now this same logic, this same dynamic of cost reduction and dramatic and drastic performance improvement is playing out in a range of other industrial sectors, from synthetic biology to robotics to the material sciences. And together, these advancements in these areas have the potential to unleash an unrivaled and a new industrial revolution in which the impacts on nations, on businesses, on people's lives will reach tectonic proportions. And beyond the technologies themselves and beyond their applications, this transformation is truly opening room for a democratization of innovation. Like never before, it is becoming feasible for citizens around the globe to engage in innovation, to engage in technology development, scale up, and deployment. This transformation across all industries is being enabled by the availability and, in essence, the ubiquity of information technologies and information platforms, but also by the dramatic drop in cost of technologies. Today, as we've already heard many times, billions of citizens now have at home the computing power that only just even 5 or 6 years ago, that only a few number of government agencies or global corporations had access to. And pretty soon, that reality will apply to things like DNA synthesis. So coupled with the new organizational models, new financial solutions, and social phenomena, these developments are really leading to this democratization of innovation, which materializes and in some sense is also enabled by things like crowdfunding, makerspaces, do-it-yourself biotech hubs, open source digital platforms, maker communities, and even citizen science. We also know and understand better today about the process of innovation itself. That's a result, surely, of research and findings and insights from management and political sciences, but it's also an outcome of technology development itself. The capacity to obtain, to analyze massive quantities of data is an important driver for the systematization of innovation. The application of data analytics, big data, randomized control trials, advanced modeling and simulation, all of this is opening up tremendous new horizons for innovation around the world. And the impacts that those transformations will have for businesses, for science and policy still need to be decoded. They still need to be interpreted. But the implications for global competitiveness agenda will be huge. The U.S. Council on Competitiveness is focusing squarely in this space, particularly in our newly launched Exploring Innovation Frontiers initiative. This is a public-private partnership that we have launched with the director of the U.S. National Science Foundation. And in this session, we are joined by 2 distinguished technology and business leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, who actually helped us launch that initiative 4 months ago in Atlanta at the Georgia Institute of Technology. And they're with us today to do a couple of things. First of all, they're going to share with us their insights on future perspectives and the applications of a range of critical technologies, from advanced materials to information and digital sciences. Dr. Keoki Jackson, the Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of Lockheed Martin, and Mr. Jim Phillips, the Chairman and CEO of Nanomech. They're going to share with us really their insights on the business of innovation and their own strategic foresight on the over-the-horizon, truly transformative developments that will underpin future innovation, future industrial capacity, productivity, prosperity, and global competitiveness. So Keoki, I'd really like to invite you up to share your thoughts with everyone here.
Well, salam alaikum, and good afternoon. It's a real privilege to be able to welcome our honored guests here today, and thank you to Chad, and thank you to the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils, and particularly to our gracious hosts from Sagia here in the King Abdullah Economic City. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to discuss some of the frontiers of technology and innovation and how they apply to global competitiveness. At Lockheed Martin, we focus on delivering solutions to some of the most complex challenges in the areas of global security, delivering citizen services, and advancing scientific knowledge. At the heart of it, we're a technology company, but we're in the business of solving very complex problems and demanding problems for our customers. What we find is that these solutions don't depend on any single technology. We bring together and we integrate multiple cutting-edge technologies, whether we're working on things like clean ocean thermal energy conversion for electrical power, or missile defense, advanced missile defense systems, or the Orion capsule for the future of human space exploration. That means a couple of things. One, we need to keep our eyes open and pay attention to a whole range of technologies. And two, we need to focus on new ways to put these technologies together to create innovative solutions to compete and to grow in the future. So let me jump in and talk about a handful of technologies that I find particularly exciting from my vantage point. Just to list off a few: autonomy and robotics, big data and data analytics, advanced materials in manufacturing, next generation electronics, and quantum computing. I'll start with autonomy and robotics. This is a field that has really visibly taken off in recent years. From robotic vacuum cleaners to this year's DARPA Robotics Challenge, where a wide range of humanoid robots competed in realistic disaster relief scenarios. Our focus at Lockheed Martin has been on handling the most dangerous and hostile environments, from autonomous inspection of oil rigs in the deep sea with our Marlin submersible, to fighting fires and delivering relief supplies in disaster zones with our unmanned K-MAX helicopter. These systems are getting more and more capable, and some of the most exciting applications involve teaming between humans and robots and collaboration between different kinds of autonomous systems. When you look at these systems, you realize that there are a whole bunch of important enabling technologies. Take data analytics. We all know about the explosion in data. Next year, 2016, is the year when internet traffic is expected to cross the zettabyte threshold. It's hard to get your mind around a zettabyte, 1 trillion gigabytes, or 1 million petabytes. And for comparison, they say the Library of Congress, the entire US Library of Congress, has been estimated at just a handful of petabytes. So new tools in big data processing, combined with machine learning algorithms, are enabling us as humans to learn, to understand, to predict, and to act in whole new ways. They give machines new autonomous capabilities, but they let humans tackle problems that would otherwise be insurmountable. We're using big data techniques at Lockheed Martin to deal with the incredible volume and velocity of telemetry data generated by the Orion spacecraft as it travels beyond low Earth orbit. Many terabytes that would require literal armies of analysts and engineers to sift through, if they could even do it at all. But now we can automate that processing to keep our engineers focused on the important things, making sure that the astronauts and the spacecraft are healthy, predicting anomalies, and taking corrective actions before things go wrong, and learning how each part of the mission relates to previous tests and flight data. Another critical enabler is in the realm of advanced materials in manufacturing. We're excited about things like very high temperature plastics infused with nanocarbon structures, giving the strength and durability of the best aerospace metals with the ease and the flexibility of injection molding techniques. And additive and advanced manufacturing techniques are just starting to completely reshape our production methods. We're finding that our engineers can radically redesign parts that do the same job with a fraction of the weight, designs that can be 3D printed, but ultimately could never be built using traditional subtractive machining. It's also revolutionizing cycle time. And I'll give an example of a titanium fuel tank. It takes 20 months today using traditional machining techniques, and most of that is actually the lead time to get the forging or the billet. Today, you can print the same tank using electron beam additive manufacturing in just a couple of weeks. And think about logistics and sustainment. How about printing spare parts for a ship while it's still at sea? They've even done this on the International Space Station now, with the first parts 3D printed in space just last year. Now think about the combination of the macro and the micro together, all driven by digital data. We're pioneering what we call multi-robotic additive clusters that do large-scale spacecraft manufacturing by integrating together industrial robots with 3D printing technology. I think it's safe to say that the sky, in fact, is not the limit. The third critical enabler that we think about is next-generation electronics. The trend is toward greater miniaturization, greater complexity, and greater integration, whether it's in UAVs or satellites or wearable devices. They all need greater sensing and faster processing, but at the same time they have to be smaller, lighter, and use less electrical power. And they need to be able to handle all kinds of environments, mechanical shocks, hot and cold temperatures, even the extreme and harsh radiation environment of outer space. Just a couple of examples. We're building what we call nanotube random access memories, or NRAMs, that use half the power of traditional technologies and perform better in high temperature and high radiation environments. We're using remarkable copper nanoparticle approaches, making lead-free solders that are easier to use, more durable, and higher performance, but at the same time reducing cost and weight for soldered components. Now add in advances like conformal packaging, 3D chips, systems on chips, and new high-power electronics. These are all enabling brand new capabilities in almost every field that you look at. So now 2015 is the 50th anniversary of Moore's Law, as Chad mentioned there. And there have been numerous predictions recently that we may be approaching the end, the fundamental physical limits to doubling the number of transistors on a chip every 18 months. But there's the possibility that quantum information science may actually be the next step in going beyond Gordon Moore's famous projection and observation. Lockheed Martin has been partnering with a company called D-Wave, the maker of the world's most capable adiabatic quantum computer, to venture into this new world. With the qubit, or the quantum bit, now information exists as the superposition of a whole set of quantum states rather than the discrete zeros and ones of classical computers. While there's still a lot of work to be done in this field, it offers the possibility of solving computational problems that simply can't be done on a classical computer, even within the expected lifetime of the universe. We already know of quantum algorithms that offer exponential speedups compared to classical computing, and we're looking at applications that include automated verification and validation of highly complex software systems. Now, all of these technologies are revolutionary in their own right, but taken together, they can help companies like Lockheed Martin and our partners in government, in nonprofits, and in academia to solve some of humanity's most pressing challenges. Challenges that include the need for secure access to the global commons, to availability of affordable, clean electrical power, to the basic human need to understand more about the universe around us. Addressing these challenges is fundamental to global competitiveness and global growth. So, Chad, I'm looking forward to discussing these technologies and their implications with you and Jim and the rest of our distinguished audience. Thank you very much.
Well, Keoki, I always learn something new from you. I didn't know we lived in a zettabyte world, but now I do. And I think we're going to hear another great example of technological leadership. I'd like to introduce you, Jim. Jim is, again, the chairman and CEO of Nanomech. He's going to, I think, walk us from the quantum to the cosmological and share with, I think, all of us an interesting story, not only about entrepreneurship, but really what will be a differentiator for competitiveness for nations and companies alike. So, Jim, over to you.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. This is fantastic. It brings me back to Prince Saud, a good friend who came all the way to Arkansas, where our headquarters is, to see us and meet us, and we appreciated that meeting tremendously, and here I am in your home. This is fantastic. So, you know, it's a great time to be alive right now. It's a fantastic time because of what this is about, innovations and frontiers, and you know, there's probably going to be more invented in the next 10, no more than 20 years than in the history of mankind. And so this is a fantastic time to be here and to be around. I'm going to have, are you guys going to bring up my presentation? Do I just need to hit this arrow? Or do I just need to go offline? I'm more than happy to do that too. But there is a presentation. So, you know, we've had so many incredible inventions that are going to create accelerators going forward that we've all grown up with. We don't think about those maybe every day, but the inventions of the chip and software, the invention of storage, which is phenomenal, and you heard about how much can be stored now and processed and so forth, and then also the invention of the internet, which has given us a worldwide collaborative capability that's never existed before in terms of inventing and innovation. So I'm just freelancing now, so you want to just hit it?
Let's see if I can find it for you.
All right, here we go. So now I get to catch up a little bit, hopefully, if we're working here. So let's see if we're going. So I was talking about the innovation revolution that we're going through right now with these incredible inventions. We take them for granted every day, but at the end of the day, what it's going to usher in is truly phenomenal in terms of the pace of innovation. We've gone through, you know, if in our classic studies, we only go back typically to the Industrial Revolution and with the invention of the machine, but really it was more the invention of the assembly line that changed everything. And then we've been going through what is some people call the analog to digital revolution, or the digital re-architecting of virtually everything. And it's literally crushed companies. So, you know, I hope I can get your attention with that, because I was part of that. Part of the thing I did was invent a thing called instant messaging and a thing called the cable modem. And they're in millions of homes today, and people everywhere have these. But I can tell you that when I was coming out with that and co-inventing it and introducing it as SkyTel, first thing it was paging. And then it moved very quickly into two-way messaging, and absolutely nobody believed that anybody would ever use it. But what's coming now even faster is the era of nanotechnology. Nano, a lot of people think of it as an industry. The fact is that it's really nanoscale. So we're moving from micron scale now to nanoscale very fast, and with that, more will be invented so quickly that if you're not into the nanoscale area of manufacturing things today, you're probably already toast in terms of your survivability as a corporation. You know, you heard Lockheed Martin's CTO just then. I counted it 7 times the word nano or nanotechnology. They've made acquisitions in that space. That's not a one-year program. That's been going on for 10 years. And you'll find that that's the case everywhere in the world today. So what you're looking at right here, well, it moved. Let me move it back here real quick. A little slow on the trigger here. Hopefully it comes back. All right, so what you see on the right side right there, that's just a piece of nano. That's a nano gear. It's also a nano trigger. So that would be what you would trigger a nuclear device, or you would also have in your cell phone. And to give you an idea how prevalent nanotechnology is, that piece of equipment that you can't see with the naked eye is now about 11 years old. So it's moving at that kind of pace right now. So like we saw analog to digital, now we're seeing micron to nanoscale, which means everything built going forward will be built better at nanoscale. You know, it's 1,000 times smaller than micron. The reason it's moving so fast right now is it didn't used to be where you had the availability of electron microscopy. It's everywhere now. It's gone down in cost in terms of being able to use that. The nanotech apparatus that allows you to build those kind of things very, very fast. But in innovation, because I'm talking about innovation and frontiers, you know, in the U.S. we have this saying, the pioneers get the arrows in the back. And the reason being is that, you know, they run into this word or two words, what I've got's good enough. When I came out with instant messaging, okay, you know, from paging to two-way messaging, literally no one, you know, I had Wall Street, everybody else tell me before we sold the company a year and a half, 2 years later for about $4 billion, that no one would use it. No one would use instant messaging because why? What I have is good enough. And I'd ask the question, what is it you've got? And they would tell me, I have a fax machine. And I go, you got a fax machine? And they go, yeah. You know, at the end of the day, you know, or in the next morning, you know, it beats mail by 3 or 4 days. And if it's important, there it is. So I had to go out and hire a guy named Scotty, actually Jimmy Doohan, who was the star of Star Trek, to get the word out. So sometimes it takes, in addition to technology, it takes a little bit of marketing to make these things happen. And then we went into this two-way device. And, you know, it's amazing to me to this day. I used to tell them, your kids will use it. Everyone will get, you know, adapted to it to a point that it'll become what we call non-simultaneous communications, far more efficient than getting on a phone. And no one believed me. No one believed me whatsoever. And so, you know, after that took off and moved, you know, in terms of innovation and frontiers, my next thing was the cable modem. In the United States today, almost every home has a cable modem. But when I came out with it, and it increased the speed from ISDN, which was at about 264 kilobits, to right at 10 megabits synchronous, I would tell people, I can give you 1 million TV channels. And they would look at me and say, well, I have 3 and I don't watch all of those. And so they'd say, why would I ever need 1 million TV channels? And I would try to explain, you know, that you'd have this multimedia-rich experience and you could dial up anything at any time. And they all said, well, I'm not going to ever need that. So we all know what happened there. Then I came out with a thing to help in medicine. It was called the vein viewer. The idea is, it was my first time with nanotechnology, and using 760 nanometer imaging technology, I could shine a light and see all your veins. And the phlebotomist and the nurses said, I don't need it. I can hit a vein every time. I said, well, actually, you hit it 1 out of 8 times. And this is 1 out of 1 times. And so that actually took off. But again, it took a little bit more. When you talk about innovation and frontiers, it's more than just the science. The science is great. So the vein viewer took off. But until I came out, and I'm going to show it to you right here. I don't know if this video is going to work. We'll see if it goes. It's not moving, but that's okay. It is, oh, it's working up there. It's just not working here. So you can see how easy it is to access. That has saved now, since I came out with that, thousands and thousands of lives, babies mostly, preemies, and then older patients and so forth where their veins roll. But until it hit Wired magazine like this, it didn't really take off. And there's one in every hospital now, and they're going around the world as fast as they can put those in. So, you know, when we talk about innovation and frontiers, it's a combination of ideation, thinking it up, invention, innovation, and then execution at all times. Now, nano, which is coming at you so fast, you don't have any idea, I can guarantee you, how fast this is going to change everything you make, manufacture, or that you use. And there's all types of nanoscale technology. To give you an idea, just in case you don't know, if I had a football in my hand, 1 nanometer is equal to a football compared to the entire planet Earth. And so me and my partner who will speak next, the Cto of Nanomech, we make things at that scale. And we make it in quantity, which is very, very interesting. Now, the reason we can do that is because of electron microscopy. What you're looking at right now is a scale model of the London Bridge, okay? Might not be a big deal, except we did this with 1 grain of sand. And it's child's play. There's nothing to this in terms of being able to make that happen. So it's a very fast-growing industry. In fact, it's a moon race. If your country's not in it, get in it as fast as you can, because it's not just the U.S. that's part of it. You heard Deborah Wynne-Smith talk about it's at $1 trillion enabling pace right now. It's going at a lot faster than that. Other countries are in it. Nanopolis in China, building on 120 acres, not research and development, pure commercialization to try and control that market. Russ Nano walking around the United States with a $10 billion $10 billion checkbook to invest in any company that is willing to take those investments. So it's truly a moon race. But why? It's changing everything. It's going to change healthcare. These nanobots, they may look very futuristic to you, where they clean out your artery, eliminate your tumors. That is so close, so close. The only thing holding this up probably right at this point is actually regulation. This is a lot of fun if it'll play, and this is, of course, my friend the chameleon. So this gives you an idea of what's called biomimicking. So at nature's level, literally down at nature level, we're able to take the technology that exists, okay, and you can see right here at the nature level, what's happening is there's a translucent film on that animal, and that translucent film is an adaptive film and cell structure that changes as it touches something or gets onto a limb or what have you. And so while that's exciting, it can easily be moved into this space. You know, we all like our cars more than our lizards, but so that if you hit with an electrode onto that membrane, and it becomes a membrane at that point in time, it changes color. So if you weren't happy with the red, you can change to purple or green for the next day. This is coming at you very, very quickly. This is not exactly even rocket science at this point. So now what's amazing in time in terms of nanoscale technology is, go back to 1500, and there was a guy named Da Vinci. And Da Vinci was an engineer. He invented a lot of things. But he was looking at bat wings. This is actually his drawing. And he was talking about the adaptive characteristics of a bat wing and how to fly. Well, that translates to this day as we begin to go into new types of materials, some of which you heard described by Keoki, to adaptive wings that allow you to have no turbulence and, as a fighter aircraft, whether it's a UAV or not, outperform anything else in the sky. And that's coming incredibly quickly at the same time. In the battlefield, a lot of times smell makes a big difference. And so this animal, this Labrador, actually has one of the best noses ever. So at Caltech, using nanotechnology with this little device, which is now a lot smaller, you can be on the battlefield and you can smell who's upwind 2 miles away and tell if that's your guy or the other guy, and what he had or she had to eat last night. So nanoscale technology is fun to talk about in these cases. It can become very practical. This is the gecko. We've all heard about the gecko. When you really microscope down and see those feet, you know, how can a gecko crawl up on glass? You see millions of hair structures, all in different curvatures, because you're microscoping it now. And as that happens, you begin to be able to crawl in all kinds of situations. This is Hollywood, but don't think that those gloves are too far away in terms of being able to create a gecko-like experience. So only when you reduce down to nanoscale, down to a billionth of a meter, are you able to create these kind of things. So let's get real world. What does my company do? We're an advanced materials company. We're not a nano company. Nano is really not even an industry. It's the ability to operate at nanoscale. The world runs on machines. Machines run on, and we say nanomech, but they also run on lubes, a lot of them from your country. So these are our product platforms. I'm going to go through this really, really quick, but the idea being just how important all of this is to a functioning world, because we get away from it a lot of times. So what we've done is we've taken down at nanoscale, literally at the molecular level, created a complete algorithm to create macromolecular types of lubricants. We make fossil fuels worth hundreds times more than what they're worth today, because we add in performance, we add in efficiency, and we add in sustainability to a level that is being produced today. That means that fossil fuels are now becoming incredibly more valuable than what's called alternative energies. It will put alternative energies out of business because it's going to make all your fossil fuels incredibly green. We take out things like ZDDP, zinc phosphorus, and add in things like plants and canola oil. But it now performs as much as 1,000% better as the oil did before, still using fossil fuels. Everybody's after the same thing. I'm sure you can't read that, but when you use lubricants, you're trying to overcome extreme pressure, tight tolerances, and corrosion. We overcome all of that very easily when we switch it down to nanoscale in terms of manufacturing in the world of fossil fuels. So, and it applies to all types of fossil fuels, from motor oils down to greases, to marine greases, to gun oils, to any type of lubricant. And it makes fossil fuels much, much more valuable and sustainable. So This is a good picture. I usually bring a customer along, but didn't because of the video here. So this is in the oil fields, and a company called Cameron, this is their pictures, $12 billion company, just and happen very, very quickly. That moves us into body armor that's super lightweight but better than ever before, and putting us into situations where we can create modular body armor for all types of applications. Some of this I won't have time to go through, but you can imagine how it moves into the consumer market very, very quickly as well. So this is Element X. Element X is the ability now to create new materials that never existed on the planet before. We're sending aircraft up to Mars to try and find new materials. We can take the entire element table today and make it three-dimensional in terms of the periodic table. As you move down to nanoscale, any one of those elements, aluminum that will not burn turns into solid rocket fuel, the best in the world for NASA at a certain level. So we have the ability to do that with basically every element. This is how it works. I don't know if this video is going to turn on or not. So we take all the atmosphere out of a chamber. That's aluminum wire going in over a 2,000 degree copper goalpost. And we used an old Einstein patent, Einstein-Bose patent from back in the late 30s to make this happen. And that plume you see are trillions of nanoparticles that are being made. And we control the morphology, the coating on all of that to create new types of coatings and products that are either indestructible, stop all wear, all corrosion, and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is it's real. It's real, it's now, and if you thought the analog to digital revolution was something, watch this one happen over the next 2 years to 3 years. It's not going to take 10 years. This is a UAV. They're all over the place. They are all stealth. They knock out the digital signature, but they don't knock out the noise signature. So we can make an oil that is completely noise-free, and to that extent, you take out the noise cycle as well in terms of the stroke. And they're getting smaller. So the country with the best UAVs at the end of the day wins. And they're going to continue to get even smaller. And they're still going to be able to fly, but they're going to make noise. So you got to take the noise out and a few other things. And they're also going to be through inductive capability, have the ability to recharge on any type of electronic cable. And then they'll get down to this size. And they're way below this size, and they're becoming active today. So, you know, every manufacturing of all kinds in all history, one of the things it can be done with is it does ultimately get weaponized. And so that's the only reason I bring that and show that to you today is because we're in a changing world. This was about to be frontiers, innovation. I hope in just a few minutes I've got you excited about nanoscale engineering, nanoscale manufacturing. If we can help as a company, Nanomech, in any way, we're here to do it. It started with a meeting with Prince Saud. It was an excellent meeting, and we look forward to answering any questions.
Thanks a lot. I'm already getting a signal that this is up, but I'm going to take moderator's privilege. We've got to ask you a couple of questions, and we've got to give you your fair time. I've already learned a lot today. Zettabyte. I've heard a lot about new advanced materials, quantum computing updates. I wonder if the two of you can just share with us not just what you're doing today, but what do you see going forward? What sort of progress are you going to be making on the technological front? What are you seeing, and how can we accelerate to get to that state? Keoki, I'll open up with you and go to Jim.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to where I started again. And so you look at all these technologies, and for us, the really interesting thing is how do you put them together in new ways? So for us, having something like a nano-enabled lubricant is critical to being able to make, say, a satellite that lasts 5 times as long or something like that. And so now you can think about dramatic improvements in performance, but also dramatic improvements in things like life cycle costs. So those are the areas where I think that I'm particularly excited. We talked a little bit about things like nanoscale products. But think about, you know, and I talked about a zettabyte, right? So the interesting thing is you think back to 2006, which I think was when Cake was incorporated. So the internet traffic has increased something like 50 times since that point in time, and it continues at that rate. You think back to when I was a kid, a hard disk, you know, that held a megabyte was, you know, about this big around, giant platter. So now imagine a quantum technological memory device that holds that sort of that world amount of information literally in a cube something like an inch square, right? And so those are the kinds of things that we could be seeing in the not too distant future. And you think about that and you say, okay, that completely revolutionizes, you know, what I can put into a device maybe the size of a mosquito like you saw up there on the screen.
Thanks, Keoki. Jim?
You know, I worry about manufacturing. You know, we've got this worldwide excitement about social media, and it's kind of all you hear about. But all it is really at the end of the day, to a great extent, is disintermediation. Disintermediation. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, in the United States, you see all in Silicon Valley, and everybody gets very excited about it, where you have a Facebook, and I've heard Facebook I don't know how many times today, and 5 or 6 other. And it's great that you can Facebook, okay? But at the end of the day, there's no GDP whatsoever associated with that, to the extent that you're basically disintermediating print, TV, and you're moving it over. And, you know, manufacturing, all your costs are up front. And so we talk, and this you know, section of the conference is about innovation. It's about frontiers. And I worry not just in the U.S., but on a global basis, the decline of manufacturing. We've seen in the U.S. 77% GDP down to 17%. I mean, the idea that you make things, okay? And so you have to be able to invest in that type of manufacturing. It does take public-private partnerships typically. So, you know, here in Saudi, I mean, obviously, in the last couple of sessions, they talked about the importance of public-private partnerships. It will take that to get those companies off the ground, to get them to be able to CapEx and OpEx, you know, enough. And the new ideas, a lot of the new ideas, and I'm sure Keoki will tell you, because they're acquiring companies, but are with the smaller companies because they're able to operate out of the box, out of the quarter, you know, in terms of having to hit every single quarter. So that's my biggest fear, actually, is that we're not seeing enough new, on a global basis, manufacturing companies come out as innovators. We're seeing a lot in the IT space, not all bad, really cool stuff, and I love big data, but at the end of the day, we still have to make things.
Okay, so I want to just follow up quickly on that point because I think there's a link here. You talk about making things, and we've talked about the frontiers of innovation. This conference is about innovation infrastructure. So I'm wondering if maybe the two of you can provide some reflection on sort of what you were teeing up, Jim, new innovation models, new manufacturing models, public-private partnerships. What about policy infrastructure? You know, what about things like standards? What can we do to really unleash pent-up innovation? I don't know if two of you have some thoughts there.
Well, let me just offer a couple of observations. A lot of these technologies that we're talking about, whether they're big data or autonomy, are really breaking new ground when you think about how they'll be employed, whether it's in personal use or industrial use or governmental use. And so, you know, I think a lot of us in business, you know, we first of all don't like too much regulation, but it's almost worse to have a bad, or what I would say conflicting regulation, especially when you look across the political landscape and globally, and we are global businesses. And so I look at some of the things going on in data right now, and there's a big debate right now, you know, what are the privacy implications? Who should own the data? What should you be able to do with it? Do you have to forget it? Things like that. These are the kinds of things, if they're not hammered out, they're ultimately going to cause, I think, great problems, and ultimately cause, you know, probably some winners and losers in terms of the competitiveness battle. I'll offer the same thing with autonomy. You know, how do you, if you have a self-driving car, who's responsible, and ultimately, how do you prove the typical methods of verifying and validating that these things actually work don't work anymore the way we expect them to. And so we need new thinking around that, and ultimately new policy landscape around that. But we want it to be done in a way that is useful across global boundaries. So I think these are really important things that we're going to have to hammer out. And if we don't, ultimately, you know, you name the field, maybe cyber and cybersecurity, and you can go on and on. We're going to run into the same kinds of problems in the policy landscape across many different technologies.
Well, Keoki, and Jim, I want to bridge to you. You said you're not a nano company, you're an advanced materials company. And Keoki just brought up two important words that I think are really pertinent, qualification and certification, but also the concepts even around intellectual property. I know that's a real passion for you. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that sort of infrastructure you think advanced materials need to succeed and really drive long-term prosperity.
Well, when it comes to intellectual property, I'm a Jeffersonian type patent guy. So, I mean, I really believe in the ability of a company or an enterprise to protect its intellectual property. It's a must, because you pour literally life savings and man hours into it, and there's got to be a way to protect it. I worry about cyber warfare. We have the most hit firewall in the entire southeast U.S. by the Chinese militia. You know, it's just a fact, okay? Yeah, they're there, we see them, and so we have to literally go back to the 1920s, go offline into our logbooks, and not go on the grid when we invent things at a certain time. So that's one side of it, is how do we deal with cybersecurity? It's not just one company or one country doing it either. So, you know, some of these are the hardest issues. I mean, technology is a reflection of society. Say that again. Technology is a reflection of society. And so when you get into tech ethics, which Keoki just did an incredible job of discussing, you know, sometimes you find as a corporation you have to almost self-police that, because you're the only one that knows your capability in that space. But since technology is a reflection of society, where does it all stop? We're getting down to the biomimicking level, the ability to create, you know, things that are just really at nature's level now, that are both phenomenal, make life better, make things perform better, perform longer. It'll create truly nanotechnology. The best thing you'll ever hear about it is it's going to create a whole new world middle class, because things are going to last longer, and you're going to be able to still develop great new products and so forth, but it's going to do that more than anything else. It'll make technology available to everybody, everywhere. There will still be the premium version of everything. You'll still be able to build the car with the latest design and the latest electronics. But if you've got a 20-year-old car operating in Nicaragua somewhere and somebody's getting to ride to school, that's a good thing.
Thanks, Jim. I think we should have, I feel terrible if we don't let the audience avail themselves of yourselves. If there are any questions, please, sir, I see you. If you could give your name and your organization, that would be appreciated.
My name is Jack Sim. I'm the founder of the World Toilet Organization. And I'm very fascinated by the nano lubricant. The flush toilet has been invented more than 200 years ago, and nothing has changed. What would be very nice if instead of using water to flush the shit, you can slide it.
What was invented 200 years ago? The flush toilet.
Oh, the flush toilet?
The flush
Did you say the flush toilet?
The flush toilet.
The flashlight or the flush toilet?
The flush toilet that you use every day has been invented 200 years ago.
Okay.
Nothing has changed. And they have.
Your point is we need to think about how do we change, how do we
Yeah,
accelerate?
you can use this nano lubricant, and instead of flushing it with water, you just let it glide. And
Okay,
so
I think we got the point. So I don't know, Jim, if you want to weigh in there.
you can save so much water.
On.
Well, number one, I can do a lot of things to that flush toilet. Number one, I can make it antimicrobial, antibacterial, to where there's not going to be any disease. The other thing I can do is make it operate on a lot less water to almost no water in terms of how you cycle. But the other thing is we can make it a hot cheeks.
Right.
A hot cheeks means I can warm the toilet before you sit down on it. But that's getting almost comical, you know. And that's being done today. But mostly it's, you know, where I come from would be the antimicrobial and the antibacterial side of it, where there's just really no disease whatsoever. And that's built into whatever you know, the composite is, plastics and so forth, which would be very important.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we have officially run out of time. Okay. Jim, Keoki, thank you very much.
Thank you.